Today represents a day that our grandfathers and grandmothers spoke of. Our ancestors told us in prophecies that this day would happen and the time would come when we need to rise up and unite together as First Nations people.
That is the voice of Tammy Watson, who sits on the council of the Saulteaux First Nation and represents the Northeast on the First Nations Health Council. She says the Idle No More movement is the culmination of 7 generations of colonialism.
Much has happened in the past, from the signing of our treaties, and our government hasn't been respectful of that and the work that we did as a people. And the honor of and respect to the treaties is no longer here. And we need to make a stand today. And this is just a beginning. And we are working for these young people here, our future, our grandchildren, and their grandchildren. And we need to fight and unite and stand together. And not just for First Nations people, but for people across Canada.
Adrienne Greyeyes is a young leader in the local First Nations community and is the organizer of the Fort St. John rally.
I chose to organize this because I feel like for myself there was a strong lack of being more participatory in political actions, and what was happening now really inspired me to push forward and start.
The Idle No More movement is in response to a large number of issues and legislation concerning things like poverty and healthcare. Locally, one of the big concerns is about the impacts legislation like Bill C-45 can potentially have on the environment.
Specifically around the protections of waters in the environment, because so many people here, First Nations and non-First Nations, we live off the land still. We still harvest meat and things like that. And just from the current oil and gas industry, a lot of our food is becoming inedible. Cancers are starting to show up in tumors and cysts and things like that. So a major concern is how our waters not being protected will further affect that.
A local misconception is that the Aboriginal community is against industrial development. Susan Auger says that this is not the case.
And one of the big things is that the Treaty 8 First Nations here are not against development. They are for sustainable development. They want to sit down with the government, talk about everything that's happening on the landscape, and then make a plan so that any development is sustainable.
The protesters marched on the office of Prince George Peace River MP Bo Zimmer. They delivered form letters that say they are against Bill C-45, saying that the bill affects Indigenous sovereignty and inherent rights to the land. Zimmer dismisses the animosity towards the federal government that is shown by the movement.
From our perspective as a government, we've done so much for Aboriginal communities, and since 2006, since we took over the government, we built 30 schools, renovated 200 schools, built over 10,000 homes, and the list goes on and on about drinking water infrastructure, etc. So we've done so much for Aboriginal communities, it's almost too much to talk about. So I guess the concerns that they have, to me, are just simply unfounded, and a look at the facts that just really shows that we've been doing, I think, an excellent job.
Similar protests are happening in Dawson Creek and Fort Nelson. What will come of these protests remains to be seen, but we will bring you more as the story continues. David Baxter, CJDC TV News, Fort St. John.